Like to thank everyone for either joining or rejoining Public Works. Really appreciate it. And I would like to thank you for voting me in at the organizational meeting to be your chair. And I'd like to give a very big shout out to Rolf, who agreed to be vice chair, and to Cecil, who agreed to clerk. And of course, if Cecil isn't able to clerk, I'm sure that there'll be other people that will clamor for that position.
It's sought after widely.
It is sought after.
There's a waiting list.
And there's actually a very big stipend for that, just so you know. So we have 12 people on the committee, and so a quorum would be obviously 7 people. And I will not have a meeting if we don't have a quorum, because we can't vote, and it's not a good use of time. So I understand things come up, totally understand that. If you're not going to be able to make the meeting, please let me know as soon as you can, okay, so that I can let other people know, so that we don't come and sit here for 10 minutes. If you need, does anyone need me to resend the schedule? Resend the schedule, okay.
I don't know whether you sent it out before or not.
I did, but you weren't on the committee.
I don't
Yeah,
think
you
I
were
was on the
you were a work in
committee, so-
progress at that moment.
Exactly, so I don't think I ever received
Okay.
it.
We will make sure we do that. So we have a special guest, but I'm gonna get to that in a second. So I'm gonna just go quickly around and ask people to just introduce themselves, tell, you know, whatever you wanna tell. If you have a dog, you have a cat, you've been on the RTM for however many years. I just think we spend a little bit of time together, and I think it's good to just get to know each other a little bit. So I'll have Frank go first.
Thanks. Thank you, Monica. My name is Frank Edelman. I've been in town 19 years. I've been on the RTM. This is my 12th year. I was previously on planning, zoning, and housing for about 3 years, and now I've been on Public Works for about 8 or 9. In my professional life, I'm a finance and real estate consultant, independent consultant these days, so I'm looking for projects. And have been, had the distinct pleasure of being the liaison to the Sewer Commission for Public Works for the last several years, which is actually, as Ed notes in his report that you shared, one of the most important and least known, least appreciated, exactly, groups. So thrilled to be here. Thank you very much.
Lindsay. Hi, my name is Lindsay Kelly. This is going on my 3rd year with the RTM. Been in town about 6 years. However, my father lived on the same street that I live on now, back in the 80s, although I grew up in New Jersey. I have 2 kids, 6 and 9, in the Holmes District. And in my professional life, I work for a reinsurer called Swiss Re, and that's in Armonk. Okay.
My name is Rolf Oben. Been living here since 1998. My daughter has graduated from Darien High School. She's now out on her own, living in Brooklyn. My wife and I are retired. Started working with the RTM 2.5 years ago. Well, maybe now 3 years ago. First served on planning and zoning, and then came to work in Public Works last year, and now again this year. And that's basically it.
Dick Poley. I've lived in town 34 years. I spent my career in reinsurance. I've been on the Public Works 12 years, and in the early years of Public Works, there was the real crisis about flooding in town. And you know, that's kind of died down because we haven't had 100-year rain. But I've enjoyed working on Public Works, and being on it for 12 years, you get to understand things a lot more.
Eric Wallace, and I actually have a lot of similarities with Lindsay because we have kids who are basically the same age and go to the same school, and I also work for a reinsurer, which seems to be a tie into the committee.
He's busy.
So, I work at Gen Re, which is in Stanford.
Cecil Wade. I moved with my wife to Darien in 1995, so I guess that makes us here 24 years, maybe, because that was November.
Yeah, 24.
I'm retired from a long career in information technology, and I have 4 kids, 3 of whom are out, graduated from college, one of whom is a sophomore in college.
I'm Ronald Mittner. We moved to town in 2007. I've been on the RTM from 2012 to 2016. I served on the Finance and Budget Committee and then on the Parks and Recreation Committee. And we left town end of 2016, lived in Chicago and then in Europe for 2 years, and recently returned. I'm married, my wife Pamela. I've got 3 children, 20, 18, and 16 years old. And I'm a professionally global consumer goods executive, moved into private equity, and I'm usually busy helping fix and grow businesses in trouble.
Hopefully you're not very busy. Just because of that. I'm Monica McNally. I think I've been on RTM for 8 years. I served on Public Health and Safety. I've served on Park and Rec. I'm on the Rules Committee, and this is my second term on that. I chaired this committee last year, and I'm looking forward to chairing it again. I have 2 kids. One is in New York, working for a law firm, and one is at Denison, hopefully in the library. And I have a financial consulting background. I am very happy to serve on this committee, and one of the reasons is because, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, we have the pleasure of working with a real professional who is extremely experienced and helpful. And that's not Darren, although Darren is also. That's Ed Gentile, who's over here, our Department of Public Works Director. And so the next item on the agenda is he is going to give us some updates. Does everyone have an agenda? I did bring a couple of extra, but I won't do that all the time, but I did do it today. So if you need an agenda, just raise your hand. Dick, you need one? Lindsay, you got one? Hey, Ed, do you want to come and sit down here just in case it'll be easier for the camera thing?
Yeah, that's your own family.
Everybody wants to see
You want to have the back of his head to the camera.
So
Let's see how many likes you get. How many
So-
tags?
It gets more likes than anybody.
So
And
I-
views first, right?
Yes.
Okay, I did send out a few things. I sent out a sidewalk policy, kind of interesting, dated 1997. And I also sent out, which I think is what you're going to find extraordinarily helpful, is the quarterly report from the Department of Public Works. This is a report obviously generated quarterly. Ed and his department do this. And it was just filed with the Board of Selectmen last night, so that's kind of the timing for the quarter that ended December 31st.
So you didn't send that out?
I
you?
did, I sent
When?
it to you, I believe today.
Oh, okay. I just haven't seen it today.
And I don't have the sidewalk policy, sorry, when was that sent?
That was with the same.
That was with the invite.
That is with, that's this,
Got it, okay.
but I can,
That's good.
okay. So, this will come to you quarterly, not necessarily lined up with a meeting, okay? So as soon as I get it, I will send it to you. So you'll look for a quarterly report, okay? And,
Just as an aside, I think Kate mentioned too, when I asked her about distributing them,
Uh-huh.
that she's going to try to get these put on the website too, so that you don't have to send them out. They'll be there if you want to look at them, as far back as she wants to. I don't know how far
Okay.
that actually is.
okay, so I will continue to send them out just so that, it's just something that I know. But I will also let you know when they're loaded and you can go and look at past reports. So each report is, he follows, he gives updates. Okay, so hopefully you had a chance to look at it.
And pictures too, lots of.
And lots of
Yeah,
pictures.
those
I
pictures
like
and
everybody
graphs.
I like pictures,
Yeah.
because it puts context to it.
Yes.
Like the reception area, right, before and after.
It's
Very
good if you
nice.
have a color printer too. So some of these things that Ed's gonna cover tonight are already pages 7, 8, and 9. Cover some of these things, but he is going to do a little bit more in-depth, I think. Okay? All right, thanks, Ed.
No problem. I did look at the list that was sent out, and with a wide range of topics, if you will. And I know that there's one on here that's very passionate to the group, or some of the folks that want to talk about it. So I'm gonna ask that we skip over that one.
Okay.
All right, and let me take you through some of the
And
ones
then-
that, kind of get you up to speed and get used to the way I talk. I do try, I have to say, I do enjoy working here in Darien. I've been here for almost 6 years now. I do enjoy the type of work that I do. So speaking about these projects, you'll understand that I do understand what's going on. I also enjoy doing them. So this is something that I want to call it a hobby, if you will, but I get paid for it. So I do enjoy that part.
We all need a job like that.
That's right.
So let me jump over sidewalks, and I promise you I'll come back and I will stay until your last question is answered as best I can. But I think that was gonna take a lot of time, and I wanna give you some insight on some other ones too. I don't wanna run through them too fast. But let's talk about the 2020 road paving. So I do have a tentative list right now. I call it a draft, and the reason I call it a draft is I really don't wanna put it out to the public just yet. And the reason I don't wanna do that is I don't wanna make a promise that I can't keep. So if I go out there and evaluate the roadway in March and April to finalize my list before I put it out to bid, and I pull one off, I don't want to upset the residents that are expecting to pay. So I keep that very close to the vest, and Jamie is understanding of that too, so he allows me to do that. But I do put it out as soon as I do put the bid out and award it, and usually in June and July, so that folks know that we're coming. We are going to do about 5.5 miles of roadway this year. The majority of it is where the trenching was done for either the gas company or the water company.
Can I ask a question? Is that 5.5 miles like an average amount that's done every year, or is this a bigger year because of all the construction that's being done?
Good question. I was just going to get to that part. On the average, that's fine. On the average, we do around 4 miles a year. So we try to program that so that we turn the roads over and pave them generally every 20 years. We have 80 miles of roadway, 4 miles a year. It kind of works out the math. You'll find that some roads hold up better. So I can hold off paving, and some roads need attention sooner. And then I make that adjustment as we go. I do have a 5-year program that I send out to all the utility companies, so they know where I'm going to be paving soon, or within the next 5 years, program-wise. And then they come in last minute and ask to go ahead and open up that road or open up another road. So we do our best to coordinate, and so do they, but I understand that they have, like I do, a budget they have to work with, and sometimes they have money that they need to spend before the end of the year, and problems they have to address. Our paving generally takes on its schedule in July and or August when school is out of session, so that we don't impact the schools, the buses, the kids that are walking to school. So, any questions on paving? Any comments or
Yeah,
concerns?
quick question, I mean, just out of curiosity, is there, you said some roads fare better than others, is there some kind of indicator that being in the business as long as you have, that road's gonna go first?
You can take a look at the road. You can have a ton of experience, and you can be dead wrong most of the time. With roadways, they all crack a certain way due to certain conditions. If I put something under a roadway and I pave it, and one's harder than the other, I'm going to get what they call longitudinal cracking, surface cracking, if you will. That's not because the road's failing; it's because they didn't prep one side along with it. So you'll find that with the post road. Concrete, base material, sometimes you'll see that longitudinal crack. You actually can follow the concrete down the post road in some areas that it's still in place. Other ones where base material hasn't been prepped properly, where it's saturated, where it's wet, or the subsoils beneath it haven't been removed and replaced, you're going to get the spider cracking. Those are the areas that concern me the most, because I'm only going to mill and pave the road. I take off 2 inches of the 4 that's there and put back 2 inches. If the base material is not in good shape, it's just going to happen again. So where we find those areas, we end up digging them out and putting some better base material in, a little thicker, and then we pave over it. Since I've been here, I have to say the Darien's roads are in decent shape. I haven't had to dig out a lot of bad base material. So to my predecessor, I thank him. That has made my job a whole lot easier to schedule the roadways and manage my budget.
Can I ask a question? Sure. Leroy Avenue is a complete mess. Is it going to get paved? I mean,
Yes,
the
it
gas
is.
company tore it to shreds.
They did. As much as I tried to put them in a travel lane between the wheel ruts or under the sidewalks, you'll notice that all the paint marks from other utilities are under the sidewalk. So I ended up having to put them out into the lane. I'd much prefer to put them under a sidewalk. It's cheaper to replace, and it doesn't do as much damage to the vehicles as they drive over it. Currently, they finished that leg of Leroy this past year and energized it. By contract with the utility company, we have to give them 18 months to be able to sell services to all you residents that want to hook up, that live on Leroy, that live on McLaren, High School Lane, Middlesex, up where we crossed over. So wherever we put gas, I'm by contract obligated to allow them to sell the service to new people for 18 months. So 2021, Leroy will be paved. But there are sections that the gas company finished a year ago, almost a year and a half, it'll be a year and a half in July, where I am going to pave this year. So I am going to catch up to some of the work. West Avenue is one of the areas that.
Are they responsible
Yeah.
for the cost of repaving?
They are. They made a contribution to some of the roadways. Some of the newer ones, they made a substantial contribution to. Some of the older ones, if it's on my paving list and I've held off paving it, they actually get that one for free. So I was gonna pave it anyway. So they moved it up and they did their work and I went through and paved it. It's a pretty good give and take because at the end of it, I give them a bill of what we've agreed on to pay and they give me the money. And I can stretch that money a whole lot further than they can. So we do get more. So to answer your question, I get a little bit more because I'm doing utility trenches because they are making a contribution to those.
Maybe
sorry.
last question, budgeting wise, how does it work? So when are you being given the budget, and then from that budget, when are you planning the repairs?
Well, right now, my budget for this year's paving is making its way through the budget process.
Okay,
I figure in the cost of asphalt, the linear footage that I want to do, and my preliminary draft list, if you will, with the contributions from the utility companies.
so the new budget will be handed to you when?
It's approved July 1st.
July 1st, and then you plan out as of January 1st, or
And you lost me.
for the repairs? So when your budget is released in July?
In July, I'm going to pave in August.
Okay, so you already have the plan,
I
so
have.
once you have your budget,
Once I
you're
have the
gonna
budget,
maybe
you just-
revise your
it's-
priority list and say, I can cover this.
That's correct.
Okay.
And so far since I've been here, and knock on wood, I've been able to do every proposed list that I've put forth in the budget. They've been really receptive to me moving and paving roads here and keeping them up to those standards that Darien residents expect.
One quick question, I think. Is the town responsible for all the roads within the town? Or are there certain state roads or?
There are state roads that we do not, there's Main Turnpike that we don't touch. There is Hoyt Street, Mansfield, Boston Post Road, and Tokenique are state roads, and we don't pave those.
Okay.
They do let us know when they're going to pave them, which we end up going out there and raising and modifying our manholes so that they can, when they pave, we don't have to dig them up again. So. Second one, town hall generator. So you folks know, we did get a qualified bid with a company that we used over at the DPW garage when we redid that facility about 2 years ago. It's for $275,000, so under our budget right now. We do have some outside work that we will be doing with some contractors. We do have a couple modifications we're going to make into the design. So there'll be a small change order and a retaining wall and fencing that I need to put out and get quotes for. But it appears that will come under budget with this project. That was the intent, and it does appear that that's the direction we're heading. Currently, we are working on phase one. We did a shutdown, the first shutdown this past Saturday, which allowed them to pull wire and make some modifications to prepare for our second shutdown that's in February, second week in February, the 15th. It's a Saturday. We end up having to shut the whole building down. Unfortunately, for the people that do usually use it on Saturday, I have to pick that day to give me Sunday in case I can't get it back up and running. I have at least 24 hours to catch up. I'm not trying to chase myself for the next workday. At that time is when we're going to pull a new service for the town. We have 2 services to the town right now. We're going to remove both of them and bring one new service into the building. and use a transformer to feed our larger equipment. We have a 208 service, and we have a 480. 480 handles all the rooftop units, elevators. 208 handles all your general electricity and plugs and things like that.
Somewhat of a suggestion. What's the scheduled date for that shutting down?
The second
When it
one
shuts
is
down.
February 15th. We
Okay.
already have it arranged with Eversource to be here, which if you've dealt with Eversource before, they are tough to get on the schedule, so we locked that in about 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
Is there something I should know?
Well, I was going to say, if you're worried about, or to minimize the disruption on a Saturday, I was going to say, well, you could do it on Sunday, the Sunday before President's Day, because then it's really no disruption, because I imagine Town Hall is closed on Monday. I'm just suggesting that without knowing all the facts.
We took advantage of the holiday this weekend because it was our first shutdown, and it gave me 2 extra days in case something happened. I'm going to take advantage of as many days as I can. We've already notified the Darien Arts Center, and they've been great with us as far as rescheduling they have programs, but they have a show that they're training for. Recitals or rehearsals. I'm sorry, I'm struggling with that word. And there's some basketball and stuff that they're going to move to the YMCA. So it wasn't a bad weekend to do it. So these shutdowns are critical, and there's one more in March that we'll do to regenerize everything in the building and to put the transformer in place.
Is the tree down?
The tree is down.
It is down.
Yep. When we go to pull out the material to dig down for the generator, we'll pull that stump out and recreate everything that's there. Town Hall HVAC or heating upgrades. I don't know if you folks are aware that this building used to run a certain way on a certain system. It's called a pneumatic system. All of our ventilation, the dampers were open and closed using forced air, basically. What happened?
AC and
Heating.
heating.
So what happens with an older system and the rubber tubing and the fittings, they all tend to leak. So what happens?
So there's pneumatic controls?
Pneumatic controls, pneumatic
Got it.
system. So what ends up happening is the bladder will be open, your damper will be closed, you'll be nice and comfortable, the cold air is going other places. In the summertime, that thing will deflate and blow cold air into your room, and you'll be cold. So what ends up happening is we went through and changed all those dampers on the first and second floor already. So we have actually great control of the cooling system now and the fresh air system. What we're struggling with right now is the heat. Sometimes it's hot, sometimes it's cold. I have to say that this is probably the worst winter. I did tell some of the departments that don't take it personally, I'm not doing it on purpose. But we have the same type of system with the valves that you'll find in the radiators. As they expand, they shut off the hot. When they deflate, they let it go. So this is a steam system, it's not hot water. So we have some modifications to do. I do put a number in for this year's budget, and as soon as it is approved, I'll be hopefully moving forward in July to fix the heating system so that our next winter that we'll be prepared. I do have a gentleman that comes in every morning here at 7. I have him walk the building, check the rooms. If they're too hot, let's get them down. If they're too cold, make sure we get the heat on in there. So we've been doing a manual check every day. The long weekend was difficult for us because he wasn't around on Monday. So Tuesday morning, one of the offices was a little bit cold in the fire marshal's area. I apologize to Bob Bush. I am sorry, but we'll do better as this we get into a better routine. But come July, we have an opportunity to fix the system to the point where we can control it with the computers now and with the electronic controls for the valves.
Awesome.
Federal Realty project. This is a good one. You all missed my soil and nail presentation to the selectmen. I know they videoed it, so you can watch that. That's actually entertaining. The current project, they are attaining permits from planning and zoning, building, and from DPW to start their on-site drainage. That is probably one of the bigger components right now to get some stuff started. Cover it over so they can actually use more of the property while they're doing demolition, doing construction of the new building, parking garage for Walgreens, and so on. So they are looking to get that started in the next couple of weeks. We do have a meeting with their construction manager next week, I'm meeting with him to go over the street opening permits for the entire project around the entire site. Clarification on when they'll pull the permits, what type of bonding, who needs to provide me insurance, when they need to notify me that they're going out there to do the work, and so on. I'm making sure they have police protection, traffic control, make sure their work hours don't impact the buses, and so on. So I have a long list of things we're gonna go over with them. I know Planning and Zoning Building met with them this week. I was unable to sit in on that, so I have my own separate meeting with them next Thursday. So we're just trying to get out in front of it, because it is a big project. If you folks haven't, gone through one of these before, I can tell you that it does take a long time to finish the job. But if you stay on top of the details with regards to street openings, with regards to inspections and so on, these seem to go a whole lot further, and they go, a whole lot faster. And with that, that's kind of why we set these meetings up now, before they started doing their work.
Have they been a good partner? Have they been good to work
They're
with?
great. They are, AP Construction is their construction administrator, construction manager. I happen to have the pleasure of working with them at the garage. They're a professional firm, they're local. Their guys are very knowledgeable. They've put one of their better guys on this project for federal. As a matter of fact, they are working the Palmer project also. So I'm gonna be working with the same company in that block area. There should be
For a few years.
a little consistency, and there shouldn't be a whole lot of missing things, if you will. They'll get the message that, from this one, that get in early to meet with the departments so that your job starts off well and continues well. Yes.
The excess water, prior to Frederick Golden, it's my understanding, was going to put in an additional underground garage to capture the excess water from the flooding of a number of years ago.
Yes.
So are they doing anything special? Because the pipe is still the same size under the railroad track.
The detention system that they've planned for that project over is quite substantial. You can equate it to an underground parking garage, if you will, but the precast structures are quite large. And a lot of the hydraulics that they ran through and presented to the P&Z for approval shows a major reduction in the Heights Road flooding to support their development. So they went above and beyond what they were required to. I think they addressed a lot of the neighbors' concerns over there. Palmer's did the same thing. They put some additional drainage on the side of the building that, drains down to that low area. And to add to it, I did a design on the parking lot for Norotan Heights train station, which, as we all know, is all asphalt. And that impervious surface generates a whole lot of runoff.
Yep.
So I designed a detention system to go into that parking lot also. So the three of us together, reducing the flooding to that area in Heights Road, is going to see a huge benefit.
So the third one you mentioned at Norotan Heights train station, is that installed yet?
It is not. It is not. It's going through the approval process through the DOT and DOT engineering.
So that'll
Because it
be
is DOT property.
So that'll be under the north side of the tracks, the height, just between Heights Road and the railroad.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. And the final bullet point I have for federal is, we do have in the works right now, a licensing agreement with bonding requirements for the soil nails under West Avenue, and I've been asked enough times now for the past one, what are soil nails? They're basically large, long screws that they put into the ground in concrete that support a slurry of concrete on an earth embankment, and generally the earth embankment is sloped like this. So they spray it on, they have the drills, and they have metal mesh, if you will. It's kind of like stucco in the side of your house. And that helps support the earth while they're doing their work, putting in their footings, pouring their foundation walls, and then they actually can stay in place and they can backfill against it. So we've worked with federal, worked with our lawyers to make sure that the town is protected, because these soil nails will go underneath the right-of-way, but they are deep enough not to impact any of the utilities that exist, or, in my opinion, anything that I may propose in the future. So, because they are upgrading the drainage at the site there, and my sanitary sewer happens to be on the other side of the road.
And so that would be in the slope, that's at what's the back of the property, kind of behind the Stop and Shop
That's
now,
correct.
that's against West Avenue.
Yeah, it'll go under West End.
That's correct.
How deep, how long are those nails?
Depending on the the height of the retaining earth, they can go anywhere from 15 to 25 feet. So, and it's like a large drill, they
Be a hell
drill
of a
it in,
screwdriver.
Yeah,
they put the screw in, they fill it with slurry, and then at the, you'll see them, they have threads at the end, it's a big giant pad and a bolt on top of it to hold the webbing in place, and then they spray it. You'll see them out, well, you see them out west, where they do a lot of it under bridges, along bridges and stuff like that, for retaining soil. Any other questions? We good? I'm doing okay? I'm not going too fast.
That was great.
Horizontal grinder.
Grinder.
Everybody's favorite. Okay, so we did have a demo 2 months ago? 3 months ago?
Heard great things.
The, this grinder, the one we're looking at, will take leaves, whether they're bagged or not. It does take any types of limbs, sizes, brush, grass, and logs up to 24 inches, I believe, or 30 inches in diameter. We currently spend in our budget, roughly speaking, I say approximately, $200,000 a year to remove that waste from our site. Some of the leaves we do keep and we compost. What we can't compost is we can't fit it, we do have to ship that out. So though that changes a little bit, I'd say over my 6 years that I've been here, our leaf intake is pretty consistent. So we get our landscapers from you folks who are your neighbors that have that done, they bring them in, they dump them, we charge them, and we create compost that we try to either sell, or if towards the end of the year, September or October, where I need more room, I will give it away in lieu of paying to have it removed from the site. So we do try to sell as much as we can. We were able to get rid of all of ours this year. Some of it we sold, some of it we did give away.
Sorry, did you say you spend $200K a year to remove
Yes.
stuff from the site?
Leaves, brush, logs, grass, and limbs, yes.
And the site being the
Transfer station.
The transfer
It is brought
station.
in and we ship it out throughout the year.
Okay.
And
where's the compost fit into that?
the leaves that we do bring in, we do compost in windrows up on about 2 acres, 3 acres of land up there. You could see them on the aerial or Google map, you'll see them all lined up nice. What I can't fit in that area, I have to pay to get rid of them. Excuse me?
I can see the steam coming up.
Yes, you can. We do turn them on a regular basis too, so they do compost up. But whatever I can't put there, I have to get rid of and pay for. That number is in the $200,000.
Okay, so that area is sort of opposite the transfer section itself. On the other side of the road is where all that stuff is going?
It is directly behind my DPW garage
Okay,
and just to the left of the salt dome.
gotcha, okay.
So how is the grinder going to help you with all this volume of material?
Well, it's gonna make it so that I can get rid of it or use it. And that in turn leaves me with my biggest problem, which is making it so people want it, or at least will come down and take it from me for free. Okay, I'm not looking to make a killing, I'm just looking to save $200,000 a year. Plus, if you look at the capital cost of purchasing the item right now, we're looking at about $550,000. Roughly speaking, yearly operating costs are anywhere between 30 to 50 grand. Using those numbers, I'm thinking 3.5 to a 4 year payback. And that's if we don't get a storm. If we get a storm, this thing would pay for itself and I'd say for that one storm. Other opportunities.
Because you're saying so many branches would
So
come
much
down.
material comes in.
I will
Yeah.
tell you that I looked at the numbers, it was over $1 million worth of
Disposal.
disposal for the last storm, the large one. And
Superstorm Sandy.
Yeah, and I wasn't here for that. From what I understand, there was a line out on
Yeah, it
Ledge
was
Road
crazy.
that they didn't even weigh the trucks, they just let them come in and dump.
Really?
Unfortunately, hopefully I never have to deal with it. But if I do, we will have to weigh every single truck because reimbursement from FEMA doesn't come unless you document every truck that comes through and you dictate and document every place it came from. So we've learned that lesson the hard way because it took a while to get our money. That won't happen again. But to have this thing on the site to make that material, I can stockpile that material now. It creates a 3-to-1 ratio, if you will. 3 piles goes down to 1.
Right.
Or it turns into a third of the pile, if you will. Leaves are the same way. they compost quicker, they make a better material. So we're looking at that whole benefit package if it comes to, but like I said, my problem is finding a company now that wants to take it from us. And I
Yep.
say that's a problem because most of those places are calling me trying to rent me the equipment at about $4,500 a day
A day.
with a $3,000 delivery and pickup charge. So, they obviously they must make quite a bit of money using these things, and wouldn't hate to see us have one of our own, but these are all little things I've been trying to put together, and I know Jack would love me to come up with a financial plan for this, but it's going to take me a while, maybe this year, to dig through some of the people that actually will take our material, and what would it take for them to come down here. Do we load up their equipment for them and they just drive off and we say goodbye to it, or do we get to charge them because they really want it? This all goes into a conversation with those folks. And what I can't have happen though is them leave. So do I institute a contract with them and set it up that way? Another item I've been toying with is, what if we allow, let's use an example, New Canaan, to come down with their leaves, and we charge them to mulch them, and they take them back up, and one truck of leaves is 3 loads of mulch. So I'm removing material from my site now, 3 to 1. Maybe that's an opportunity. They have a windrows up there. Well, they do have a machine that flips it on its own. They don't have anything that grinds it up. So that's an opportunity.
So no department in town could utilize any of that mulch or?
Oh, but sure, absolutely. I have quite a bit though.
Yeah.
You don't have enough.
They can't use enough.
We don't have enough acreage in Darien to use it a lot.
Okay.
Though the landscapers, they come for it, they'll take it.
Right.
Yeah, they're looking for specific mixes, if you will.
Right.
There's certain things they don't want to see in there because it doesn't provide a good mulch,
And this will be higher quality.
and that's what they're looking for.
The mulch is not cheap if you buy it in bags.
It's not. It's not.
Yeah.
You get a brand genuine Darien mulch.
Excuse me?
You get a brand of genuine
We can
Darien
brand
mulch.
it.
You can sell it at the rest stop on 95.
You can charge a premium for that.
Exactly.
So you're thinking this will be something for next year?
I'm thinking that that Kate's gonna ask me to move it forward to a point where we get to discuss it.
Okay.
So, I can tell you that there's a lot of things that I've done budgets for and evaluations on. This is a little bit new, because I have a capital cost, I have operating costs, and I have a third party that I'm gonna need to depend on to get rid of this. And that's the part that's a little unnerving as you start looking at the numbers.
So where do landscapers usually buy their mulch? I mean, I assume there are businesses for that, right? That do
You
that.
know, there's, most of them are up towards Bethel area where they have
You go
plenty of
upstate and
room.
there's a number of them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you need a lot of it, some of the places will truck it down for nothing. We do get special mulch, if you will, clean mulch, for certain areas in town, police station around here. I get it really cheap because I give him mulch back to take, and he mixes up with his topsoil and stuff, so, his delivery is free, we get maybe 80 yards of it, but it's ready to go instead of the stuff that I have that's still composting. But so everybody has, they have it, it's not a problem getting it, it's getting the good material.
So Cecil, you were asking, so in this package, you'll see there's a map of where the
Okay.
leaf stuff is.
Since we're talking about the recycling center facility, you completed those the repairs and renovations and all that stuff 6 months ago now, or maybe more. As you've been using it, has it kind of met your expectations? Are you happy with what's been done? Give a little post-action report
On the facility itself,
exactly.
after doing the DPW garage and everything around it.
Yeah.
If any of you have ever remodeled your house or a room or a kitchen or something, there's always one door you didn't swing the right way, or one room, one countertop you wish you'd made a little longer, or maybe the tiling should have been a little bit. I'm that way about this garage. There's a couple things that I'm kicking myself that you know what, I should have done it. It's okay, it works.
Right.
But
Well, it's a huge improvement from what was there. I mean, let's
it is.
not
But
mince words.
I have this OCD thing, and everything has to have a spot and a place, and so the guys are buying into it. The facility still looks brand new. We take care of it now. The guys do. We take care of the bays. It's turning into a benefit to have the floor the way it is, so I can preload the trucks for snowstorms. It's-
Which was impossible before
we
because
couldn't do before
the
that.
floors weren't
That
strong
floor
enough.
was not strong enough to hold anything up. The wash bay has been a great help. Those trucks are gonna see a longer life now because they're not trying to wash the trucks in 20-degree weather outside or in one of the bays with the door half open, because you keep it warm, but you need the water to go out. It was just, not a good situation, for our equipment and for the guys that were trying to do the work. So those things look better. The driveway, the access points, the swap shop. I do plan on doing some renovations up by the transfer station, maybe just, redoing all the curbing up there. We do hit it with the plows now. It's starting to come apart, so we'll do some concrete curbing up there to have that last a little bit longer. But
As far as the main objectives, I mean, the floor's stronger,
Floor's
the wash
stronger,
bays,
wash
you
bays,
make sense.
yeah.
You have the covered gas.
I think the
pumps
police,
now.
police enjoy that very much.
Right.
They do gas up just about every day their vehicles. I think they're required to. So inclement weather is not optional.
Right.
So that has been a big plus. It's working great.
Good.
I think the place.
Overall, you're happy with how it came out?
I am. 99%.
And I mean, I'm trying to serve some meatballs here. I mean, as
Yeah,
I recall, it came in under budget as well.
It did. It did by about $500,000.
Right.
So, but all in all, it is performing the way that we expected it to, and doing what we expected it to do for the guys, and for the equipment, and for the town.
Awesome. Thank you.
You mentioned that we're starting to move into the budget season. So I wanted to ask, with regards to your personnel and the budget, what kind of shape do you think you're in?
I'm gonna be a little vague, only
Okay.
because I know the Kate has not rolled out her budget to the Board of Selectmen yet.
Okay.
And we will ask Ed to come back and discuss that.
All right, if you'd rather table that
Yeah,
to a
maybe-
more
Maybe
appropriate
give him
time.
a chance to.
But to be vague, I can answer probably the one question: how do I look? I've been pretty consistent for the 6 budgets I've done, and I haven't had any issues with the town administrator with regards to requisitioning people or requisitioning funds for certain projects or even capital projects. And I've been asked for this year to keep the budget tight, and I did. We will stay with the number of personnel that we have. I haven't asked for any more.
What's the current head count?
I have 34 people,
Okay.
and I have a seasonal that comes and works in our office during the summertime here, and one over at the garage. And we're looking this year to bring an intern from Darien High School. I'm gonna try to talk to Darren into doing that this year, because I think
That'd be great.
I'm comfortable now. The garage is done. We're into a routine of work, if you will.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea.
And I think that would be beneficial for those kids that maybe want to see what it's like. Maybe not a lot of them want to go down into the sewer treatment plants that we have or the pump stations, but
I know a 9-year-old that would.
I'd take it.
then
And make it mandatory. Just
Comes with the package.
you sign on for that. So, but we try to bring our seasonals around to see what we do here, instead of just hearing about it on the phone, complaints or residents that come in, things like that. So selling RDA stickers for 2.5 months is kind of boring.
One of the questions that's not listed here, and maybe I'm just not up to date, but the solar panel project.
They are all up and running right now.
There you go. That answers my question.
I couldn't have been happier.
Yes, I'm sure.
Could we go back to something, just as a crazy idea? So, throwing out the idea of a high school intern, could you make it more enticing to more high schoolers by offering them some sort of credit at school and then they would be basically free labor for the summer or for a period of time.
I think Darien High School's intern program is accredited if you go. This is maybe my first year entertaining it, but I understand that they are, I'm gonna say required, but they are required to go out and do an internship for 3 weeks. I recall.
Right.
Yeah,
Well,
the seniors.
Yeah.
It's in May,
Right, so I'm talking maybe something separate from that, where it's for a summer, and they can get, and I don't have a high school, so I don't know how the credit system works there, but, you know, in lieu of, or even, I don't know, even during the school year, they work first period somewhere with Public Works, and that's a class for them. I don't know, I'm just.
I'm open to anything right now. Like I said, my first couple of years here, I was a little gun shy about doing it because I wanted to make sure that, one, I could give them the attention that they need. We all could, in sharing the knowledge that we have here in town. I just didn't think the last couple of years I could do that and look myself in the mirror in the morning because I feel like I'd failed them to do it. So this year I feel a little better. I feel that we can do something like that for one of them. The internship is in May, the one that the school puts them through. I find that when June, July, and August come along, where the senior is done with school, there's two things on their mind, and working at DPW is not one of them.
All right, so let me qualify that as a rising senior coming, you know, so it would be somebody who was a junior in their, you know, somewhere between junior and senior year.
You know, that would be something I'd love to entertain if the board, and I'd like the Board of Ed to actually be involved with that, so I'm not just picking and choosing whichever one.
But there, some other departments have summer internships for kids, so Parks and Recreation, for example, and you know, most likely it's not gonna be seniors, because yes, they have other stuff in mind. But, you know, for sophomores or, you know, juniors.
We're always looking for, and I use the word mature, and it's not by date, but it's, I need someone that's gonna come here too that is going to absorb what we're saying. And I don't want to say it rudely, but my time is very valuable, so I want them to get the best out of it for the short period of time they have. And Darren the same way. So it's, as we get closer and closer to a sophomore, freshman, I don't get that feeling. And my recollection when I was younger, that maybe not so much. You know, so a senior, absolutely. A junior, I would definitely entertain if their recommendations from their teachers says that they would be able to handle something like that. I think that would be fair.
You know, they've got the incentive to put it on their college application.
Yeah.
Yes. This is true.
Yeah.
Next one?
Yep,
Okay.
keep going.
Our favorite. We're back at sidewalks.
Back to the beginning.
Okay. I saved this one for a reason, because I understand that there's, and I get more of it from speaking with Jamie, that there's a push. They want to get, the town wants to get their sidewalks up to, which I would consider a standard. That's acceptable. And I agree wholeheartedly. The capital request that I've been putting in every year is about $200,000. And this year is going to be a little bit different. Sorry, I can't tell you what that is right now. Like I said, I don't want to kind of let it out in case they decide to go a different direction. But I do have planned locations where I try to do the work. I will tell you folks that I have been using the Pedestrian Infrastructure Advisory Committee report that directed me to get areas around the schools and close to commuters, they're close to the train stations, and look to upgrade those facilities to the best of my ability, going with the budget that I had. So I tried to keep a steady budget, though it didn't allow me a lot to do, but we were nipping away at it, if you will. I did the entire sidewalk over by Holmes, 2 straight years over that. I think it was 2015 and 16. We did some major work down by Tokenique. We're going to do some more this year. Come the end of June, as soon as the children get out of school. I don't want to do the work on an area where they have to walk.
So the Tokenique was basically one long block, got converted from old bad asphalt to excellent new concrete,
And
which looks great. I think it's the question I've been getting. I live in that area.
Yeah.
The question I get from a lot of constituents is, "Wow, that's great, but getting to that stretch and getting beyond that stretch are challenging. So I'm hoping that that's going to get reconnected to the.
We had a little budget issue, but we had some money to do that block, and I had a permit. Knowing that I need a permit on every state road,
You took advantage.
I had to take advantage of it. And so we did
But
that
more
section.
situational.
We were ready to do the next section from Rainbow to Silver Lakes.
Okay,
But
that's
we
going
we
further
ran out of
up.
time, and I was a little skittish about doing it with the kids in school. Because if I block off that, there's really no place for them to walk, but either in the road or cross over someplace where they shouldn't be, or it's not manned, if you will, onto another side of the street that doesn't have a sidewalk. So I felt that we should wait till now, until the end of June. As soon as they're out of school, I have a contractor ready to go and do that sidewalk and turn that into concrete also. State roads,
And are you going to planning to do further down Tokenique towards?
that
Walker's
will be
Road?
the next stop over to Harriet,
Okay.
depending on what money is approved this year.
Okay.
That is the next section. So I'll have about 2,500 linear feet of concrete sidewalk replaced on that road.
Okay.
So Ed, you say we have like 80 miles of road. Do you
Yes.
have an equivalent for how much distance we have with existing sidewalks?
We have 25 miles of sidewalks.
Wow. Doesn't look like it.
And that doesn't,
Letting-
That's existing
and
sidewalk.
that's, yeah, that's
Yeah.
not what you're planning on adding.
No.
And what are you planning on adding a certain amount?
There's some very small requests for additional sidewalks.
Like Locust?
Edgerton, Locust Hill is like 400 feet.
So nothing
Nothing major.
significant? Okay.
Yeah, and I say significant is, 2,000, 3,000 feet, but there's sections, Edgerton's one, from West Elm down to West Avenue, doesn't have a sidewalk, but just north of that, I just replaced the asphalt one with asphalt again, and dressed up the whole thing, and did that anticipating doing the southern portion. We just did a section over on West Avenue from Hollow Tree to Edgerton, all in
great.
concrete, that we did just before the winter hit. I'm trying to get the area around the developments done and upgraded, so that when they're done, I can do the other sides of the roads that I'm responsible for, and have a budget to do it. So, there's a section from Edgerton to Norotan on West Avenue. I'm not gonna touch that until they're done doing all their work on that roadway. Because they're gonna be digging across for utilities, they're gonna be digging across for drainage into McGuan. There's a large drainage structure that goes through there. So I left that block off. I didn't do it. I could do bits and pieces of it, but that doesn't make sense. I'm trying to go block to block, and get sections done that make sense right now. There's a piece from West Avenue to Middlesex on Hollow Tree Ridge Road. I want to do in front of the school. That one is in desperate need of, so after I'm done with
From
Tokenique
Middlesex.
for that big section on Tokenique, I'm gonna hop over to get that one done in Middlesex too.
And those are, you're thinking May, June?
That's
June,
probably
yeah.
closer to the end of the year, the one at Middlesex. I want to do the one at Tokenique first, being it's an elementary school over there. I want to make sure that's done before September.
Right, okay.
Did you look at Henley on that sidewalk on the Water Lane?
I did.
Because that is.
I did. I
In probably the worst shape of any sidewalk I've seen in town.
I drove it, and then I walked it, and then
Yeah.
I counted the number of trees I was going to need to take
Yes,
down.
yes,
I got to 25
yeah, yeah.
Where is this, right, like,
from on Nearwater Lane from,
From
Post Road.
Post Roads to.
I went all the way down to the park. I was like, listen, am I going to do it? Let me
Look at
count.
the
Let me,
whole-
yeah, let me
Yeah.
see
all the way
what
down
the-
to Weed?
Yeah.
Yeah.
To see-
I'll just add a personal story to that. So sometimes I'll run that road and I won't run on the sidewalk
you
because
can't.
I
No.
can't.
I don't even think
And it
you can,
creates-
some sections you can walk on it.
Yeah.
No,
And
I
so it
live
just
on that
creates a
road,
danger.
and I'll pick up a kid every once in a while because it is so bad that they trip. I know they're on their phones walking on the sidewalk,
Yes.
and that's how they.
Yeah.
And it's the roots are coming out, and it's so warped that if you don't watch where you're walking, it is dangerous.
So I will classify that one as, that is probably the worst sidewalk in town.
Yeah.
I did
What-
have an
what is
opportunity.
this?
Near Water Lane, so
Oh,
where
near
Henley
Water
School
Lane.
is, from Boston Post Road and all the way down to
Weed.
down
Yeah,
Weed
yeah, yeah.
Beach.
I
You
did,
you can't walk that sidewalk.
I did have an opportunity to speak to the first selectman about it also, because like I said, sidewalks happen to be she's very passionate about them.
Oh.
if you can't tell, she wants me to get caught up on a lot of this stuff right now. So in doing that, we had a nice discussion about Nearwater Lane and how I could take down 25 trees and still have a job when I was done.
Yeah, well, that's the point.
And
It's a
she
lot
came
of
up with some
trees.
suggestions, so
Yeah.
this spring, I'm gonna meet with a few people down in Nearwater, and that would be great if you were down there, just to sit down and talk about what it's gonna take to get this done and how it's gonna have to roll out to
Yeah.
the public,
Yeah.
that
It's-
either I
Just
take
the
the trees
trees
down and I
alone
fix the
is gonna
sidewalk
be
or
crazy.
not, but it's something's gotta give, if you want that to be repaired. So that's gonna be something I'm gonna be working on this year also.
And it's for sure not cheap.
You
No,
know,
that's
No,
gonna
because
be-
it's a tree,
that's gonna
it's a
be-
tree removal rule that makes it
Big
expensive too, right?
that's, pulling up the stumps are the
Yeah.
hardest part of it, 'cause
Yeah.
I can't just grind them and leave them.
No.
They will rot away and whatever is above it will settle.
Exactly.
Can I just come back to your comments about the network? So 25 miles of sidewalk is roughly what I recall from the PIAC report.
Yeah.
But they identified some significant gaps in the network. You may have only received formal requests for a few thousand feet here and there for sidewalks, but they identified some significant gaps in the network, some of which you have addressed. And
Yes.
I love what you've done to bring the sidewalk underneath the highway on Tokenique and the crossover. I think that was creative and really.
That was
really
one of the
excellent.
biggest ones, the biggest one that I remember them bringing to my attention, and they weren't wrong.
Right.
That needed to be done.
Well, so the biggest one that I think was the pee under the mattress for all of this, going back a long, long time.
You're not gonna say Hoyt Street, eh?
I am going to say that the top part of Hoyt Street, and how do we get folks from up to the New Canaan border so that they can get to that railroad station? Because I think if
Isn't there a state street involved with that one?
yeah, so Hoyt is a state
Hoyt
road.
is a
That's
state
been an
road,
issue.
yeah.
There's been an issue with right of ways. There's a couple of stone walls on the way. There's the issue of the country clubs are on one side.
There's grading issues on it.
It's not an easy one, right?
It is not.
But it is
even
probably the
close
most
to-
urgent.
yeah.
It's probably the most urgent need in town. With no disrespect to the folks on Nearwater.
I have to, I have to say, sounds like you have knowledge of how it went down originally. All I get is bits and pieces from my assistant, and he's very good at giving me the story. He doesn't weed out the bad, he pretty much lays it on the table for me. That was probably one of the more contentious ones.
Yes.
It was brought
Well,
to the state DOT's attention.
It's a really hard problem.
It is.
There's no getting around it.
Because there's nobody's will, the DOT, once you give them their right of way and their road, tell them you're gonna take a foot or two away from the shoulder area, and it's like you asked them to give up something that he didn't really want to.
Great.
You don't have to be elaborate on that, but they are very difficult to deal with on their own roadways. So putting that road on Tokenique from Old Kings Highway south underneath the bridge and everything, they couldn't be more helpful. But
Because it was not taking away from the width of the road.
As a matter of fact, I made some of the areas better.
Great.
Replaced their guardrail for them, or removed it, because it was just dismantled
Right.
from being hit. So, I made some improvements out there for them, and, they did thank me, but, how about a little bit more cooperation?
Great.
Permitting is tough with those guys, I know you know that, you guys hear it from me all the time. They have a better process now, that's why I was able to get the second piece of Tokenique from Rainbow to Silver Lakes as quick as I did.
Right.
But I did hold off, I figured I'm not gonna do it during school, but I did hear about White Street. I did hear the DOT was down here and met with certain individuals to talk about that. And they came up with a design, they came up with a layout, and they came up against some neighbors and residents that have frontage along that wanted nothing to do with that sidewalk. That's the part I heard.
So I don't think any of that is incorrect. I think that, we could elaborate more and, how many nights do you want to spend?
Yeah.
I think, bottom line, there's a need for safe pedestrian transportation and access in that whole area. And again, there's zero criticism of you in this, right? Because you've done a fantastic job of supporting the PAAC, using that report, and I think the improvements that we made have been great. But I do not want to lose sight of the fact that is a crying need. The biggest crying need that was identified in that report. Look, there were other gaps in the network near certain schools, near some of the downtown infrastructure. Trying to connect sidewalks, for example, the gap on West, it goes to Rings End Lumber and it stops, right? So there's that oddity there, right?
Well, maybe
On the south side of the street,
It does.
on the south side of West, right? So there's weirdnesses in the network, and there's improvements that we could make, right? So it's not just a few thousand feet here and there, but I think, again, if there's a top priority for kind of the matrix of volume of people using it and the level of danger and risk, especially, as we've heard in the past many times, in the winter months when the sun is setting, people coming back on that train, you've got, dozens to hundreds of people over the course of every evening kind of end up walking in the middle of the road.
Can I add on that? We had this kind of conversation last time we were together. And I have not seen the PIAC report. But my question for you is that, do you utilize the PIAC report to create a strategy of which, this seems like here, the sidewalk policy is the what and the how, but not necessarily the why or the where. So looking at, I come from because that's what I do for a living in strategy. So like when I'm thinking about this and like utilizing what is the matrix that would identify the most important areas that you go to first and setting all that out. So because right now what I hear is, I feel bad for you because you just hear people in your ear all day long, like near water, hoit, 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 tokeny, tokeny, tokeny. So how do you do you just yeah? So how do you decide?
Filter through all that.
But like, so why not get in front of it and saying like, this is the foundation of or this is how we determine where we go and when, and then it kind of puts it all to.
So Lindsay, I think that was one of the
Yeah.
the outputs of the PIAC report was
Was
to say to the DPW needs to create a schedule for, an index of all the existing sidewalks
Yeah.
and a kind of a maintenance schedule for that.
Okay.
And identifying all the potential gaps, a prioritization of those gaps, and then some timetable to say,
Yeah.
okay, we're gonna do the priority 1, 2, 3 in this
Yeah.
order, right? And, I guess, to my knowledge, there hasn't been a formal document like that created as a sidewalk strategy. I think you have some policies, I think, and so,
But
again, I think what's been done has been, taking steps in the right direction, right? So I think
Yeah.
we're happy for those steps in the right direction, but, again, that strategy document would be a big help.
I think it would also, because I think it would tamper down the talk, whoever's yelling the loudest is gonna get the most attention at some point, so, maybe take some pressure off you to have something.
So I
But-
think
but
you're
the
both
fact that you can
talking about
say-
assessment criteria. So what are the criteria, right, on which you base your assessment of prioritizing
Yeah.
Right.
the work? So you say, I don't know, whatever it is, foot traffic, okay, how many people, right? And then you could say
So this
whatever,
is
you know.
all the work that the
I don't
PIAC
know,
did
you know.
at the time.
Yeah.
They surveyed literally every
Adults, children,
foot-
I don't know what the right criteria are, but it would help if you get in front of that,
Yeah.
right? Because then you don't have that noise.
And again, you have very thoughtfully said, look, we've got 80 miles of road in town. I do about 4 miles a year. It's about every 20 years. And I have executive discretion to say I'm going to tweak the schedule. But that gives me comfort in town that if I live here for 20 years, I should see a road repeated for once. More or less, right? I don't think we know the same for a sidewalk, right?
How dated is the PIAC report?
It's not too, it's 2016?
Four
14,
years?
16?
Okay, so it's not
No.
from. a
Yeah, the
century
sidewalks
ago.
haven't changed much.
And I've been using that document to direct me on where to go and what to do. Now, as I said with paving, there's a reason I keep it a draft. There's situations that I come across on a daily basis where I'm asked to make a change to a certain location. I'm asked to hold off on doing something because someone else is coming through. It's the same thing with sidewalks. And it maybe not as much because a lot of the work is done in the roadway and not under the sidewalks, but with the development that we have going on here now, especially the larger developments, I'm trying to get out in front of what I know is coming right behind it, which is, okay, we did all our side, what about you? What about the town? What's the town going to do for their roadway? We have a whole nice new streetscape on one side. I look over and it's a tatted old asphalt walk and sidewalk and curbing, and you need to fix that. So I'm trying to get out ahead of that at the same time trying to address the locations where the schools are, where I know the sidewalks need to be done. So I'm putting the kids ahead of everybody else right now, and trying to balance the development that's going on. So the gaps that I'm trying to fill, yeah, Hoyt Street has been put on the side for me right now, only because I don't have the money to do it, or the inclination to go after the DOT to help me fix it. So, because that's going to take not just me pulling to get that done. It's going to take a lot of people to get the DOT to buy into whatever we decide to do out there.
Plus you have New Canaan has refused to deal with with that part of the site. Because the train station is
I
in
understand
New
that
Canaan.
there's a section in there that they have no intention on putting a sidewalk to, but I'm wondering if the town of Darien got
If we got it
3/4 of it, would
all of a sudden, I think they.
would our first selectman be able to
Loosen up.
talk the other?
Yeah, I went in and say chip in a little.
But
Yeah, and that might be, again, if we're to put something, a little bit more transparency around it, if you had something called the critical dependencies, like if you really want this done, you want this bumped to the top of the list, the critical dependency is that someone needs to go chase down the DOT. I don't have the time, to do it. You've got somebody, someone might have the connection or whatever that could take that off your plate, but otherwise, it's just kind of sitting there in your head, and when someone's in your ear about Hoyt, and you're thinking, well, I'm not going.
Well, we've had people in the past who had expertise in this specific area and who actually did quite a bit of spade work to help get this done. I think the issue on the New Canaan side was they were, I'm recalling a conversation that's many years old. At the time, though, their first selection at the time didn't want to put a sidewalk in that would solely be serving Darien folks if Darien wasn't also going to do a sidewalk on their side, right? Because then why would you pave up effectively from New Canaan's point of view up to the edge of a cliff, right? That's just foolishness on their side. However, if there was a need and it was part of a larger project, then they weren't against it, but it was you have to kind of
Right. I guess my point.
if they're prioritizing their dollars, they're not going to prioritize it for sidewalks serving another town that doesn't really put their own sidewalks in the first place, right? So I think there are opportunities to kind of have a meeting in their minds here, and again, and I respect your point of view. I mean, and again, priorities are set in the budget. So $200,000 sounds like, on the one hand, a lot of money, and on the other hand, like not a lot of money at all.
Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, what if we took that sidewalk budget and said, well, how much would it take in order for us to really make this a really big project? And let's identify all the gaps. Let's have a 3-year project, just fill them all and fix it all. And is that going to cost $5 million? Let's bond it, right? I mean, we have debt capacity.
Yeah.
This is I don't want to be profligate here, but these are some of the improvements on the ground that really impact quality of life in a really important way, whether from a safety or enjoyment. So,
So let's step away from the filling the gaps piece. Because
Okay.
it's kind of a different creature, and I'll get back to that in a second. The other part is, what I did this past September is I had all of our sidewalks evaluated and ranked. And locations dedicated for work, for replacement, for immediate repair, and I came up with a number of about $3 million if you add in all of those. And actually did a sidewalk replacement for a 5-year and sidewalk replacement for a 10-year program. So we're at about $3 million for that program, if you will, to get us up
That's
to.
just replacing existing?
That's correct.
Okay, not building more, right?
Not
Yep.
we'll leave that for
Yep.
another,
Yep.
for
So
like 5
that's-
minutes.
So that's 3 million over 5 years.
3 million over 5 years. So that's something that, a discussion that, of course, we had for my budget. And
Right.
that's where they are right now. I don't know which direction they're gonna go. But I did present them with my numbers of what needs to be done in our eyes right now. What we call immediate repairs, or something within a 1-year repair, and then there's a 5-year and a 10-year. So we tried to kind of walk out what we can actually take care of. Now,
That
We-
included the
but
10?
that I think
That included the 10-year
Yes, it
repair?
but I think that's super helpful, right? So we
Yes.
can say like,
I got
hey,
a ballpark.
If we want to, if people want to march around town hall with torches and pitchforks to say I love sidewalks, right? Then here's what you're asking for: is
Yeah.
$600,000 a year for 5 years, and that which is bigger than $200,000 a year, but it's not
Yes.
like A moonshot.
And you put it in great perspective, because the way I had to think about it is, you can give me $3 million this year. I can't do $3 million worth of work.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if you look at what I can do, so I did an evaluation, that sidewalk I just did over on West Avenue from Howard Tree to Edgerton. 1,000 feet, took me 3 weeks. So I said, okay, what if I ask for $500,000? Okay, it'll take me 18 weeks to spend that.
Right.
Well, what about 750? Well, that'll take me 32. Right?
And I don't have 32 good weeks of weather. Right.
You don't.
So therein lies my problem. So I had to balance that too. What's really good is we just got. I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that. 750. I'd have 26 weeks, so a half a year to do it. I only have available 32 weeks of the year. So I have paving to do. Also, I have drainage to do. So there's I have to make sure that
Well, unless you contract additional resources, you could, right?
that is a contractor doing the work.
Okay.
Right.
Alright.
It's just us overseeing what they're doing.
Yeah, there's,
As much as I want to trust the contractors we hire,
yeah.
I don't. I have to watch them. It's part of the job. It's what we do. So
So you have to watch them one stretch at a time. You can't have them out 2 different areas.
it's kind of hard to chase 2 or 3 crews around.
Yep.
Then your quality of work seems to
Yeah.
dissipate.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not willing to do that right now.
You know, one thing is, assuming this plan goes ahead and we're going to focus on rebuilding sidewalks, I think people might be up in arms that you're spending all this money to rebuild when we, to get back to the other conversation, filling in the gaps might be more important. I think that's when there's going to be a lot of contention going on.
Oh, and I'll say one thing, and I'll get to your filling the gaps part, Frank. I got something I want to kind of enlighten you to, and I'm sure you guys know most of it, but I want to give you an ed perspective on it. We just hired ourselves a brand new highway supervisor. He comes with a ton of experience in inspection, sidewalk work, paving. He ran the paving program in Stanford, sidewalk program, pavement patching, things like that. So he comes with a ton of experience, and we're looking forward to putting him onto the sidewalk work so I can free up Darren. Instead of him being out doing inspections, he can actually start doing permitting and get us more work to move ahead with, putting out bids, maybe getting a second contractor in. Maybe I can use them both. So we're looking at different options right now, but this one hire that we have is going to be beneficial to us as we move forward.
One last question about the maintenance, I'm sorry. My recollection is that sidewalks that get repaved as new asphalt have about a 20-year life, and sidewalks that get repaved as concrete have a 75 to 100-year life.
That's
In the absence of accidents, trees, other kind of people digging them up for some other reason.
Yeah,
I think when we talked, as we meaning the Public Works Committee, several cycles ago, we felt like, gee, if there should be a default, it should be the cement sidewalk. They were somewhat more expensive, but they last 3 to 4 times as long.
Okay, I think the 75s is a stretch
Okay.
on some of it. I think asphalt gets a bad brand. They do last a little bit longer than 20, but not much. But to equate the two of them, with asphalt sidewalks, they are good in areas where you have flexible ground cover, if you will, with soils, roots, things like that. They tend to move better with it. Where you see your concrete fails is either in highly loaded areas or where there's trees and roots popping them up. And so to repair them, you've seen towns do their little ramping up with asphalt. You've seen them grind them down. Sooner or later, you don't have much asphalt left or concrete left to grind down to make them work. So I think there is a financial aspect you have to look at when we do sidewalks. There's aesthetics you have to look at. There's maintenance you have to look at. And then I think there should be, not that I'm going to say anything bad about the policy, that's what I've been using. It's in place, that's what I use. But there should be areas that are dictated for concrete, areas that are dictated for asphalt. I don't know if some of you folks live in areas that don't have sidewalks. Maybe you do. Okay, which road do you live on?
Archer Lane,
Okay.
Fitch Archer.
Imagine me throwing a concrete sidewalk and a concrete curb out in front of your house up and down that roadway. I just don't think it would fit. I just don't think it
No,
belongs
I
there.
don't think it would be practical.
And there's streets that don't need it.
And there's streets that don't need it. Absolutely, absolutely. So I think that all plays a role into making a decision what type of material, default or not, where we should go. And that's probably one of the hardest things I have to do. Because, if I change what I'm doing, if I change the material out there, there's going to be someone that wants to know why.
I'm that guy.
I liked it the way it looked. I'm sorry, okay? Policy says state roads, I gotta put them back as concrete. Sorry about that, they can't be asphalt anymore. That's one thing. Or, I'm near a school now, and I have to take that asphalt away. The closest intersection has to be concrete, and it just so happens West Avenue happens to be concrete too, so we're making the connection. Those things make sense.
Great.
A perfect example for asphalt and concrete, Norotan Avenue. As you hit Middlesex, it goes to asphalt as you head to the school. I think that's a perfect transition piece, a perfect transition area. You're going through a local neighborhood, fences, trees. There's not a concrete road, if you will, that's sticking out. That's just my preference. That has nothing to do with anybody else. But then again, you folks asked me to make those decisions. So I'm trying to be cognizant of everybody's feelings, if you will, or how they'd like to see things. And, like I said, that's probably one of the hardest part of the jobs. And actually be budget conscious too at the same time.
Okay. Now, in the analysis that was recently conducted, were those different places identified and earmarked as being more probable to work with cement as opposed to the asphalt?
We stuck with the replacement of either in kind, if that's what the policy said, or replacement with concrete, if that's what the policy said. So, state roads, I'm not allowed to put back asphalt. I have to put back concrete. Go figure, the DOT didn't, pony up any money or anything, but they've asked us to improve their roadway for them.
I'm a little confused. Isn't that covered in the sidewalk policy?
What's that?
Which material you use where?
There is
Yeah.
mention of it, yeah.
I mean, it says, here's where you use Portland cement, here's where you use asphalt.
And that's what and I said, that's the policy I use right now.
Okay.
But it's also dated 1990.
Well, it may be dated, but if
1997,
it's policy, it's
20 years old.
policy.
But I
And
also,
if it's not right, it should be changed.
and I also gave you an article, I don't know, did they have the article yet?
No.
From 1993. And you'll enjoy that article. It's actually the same conversation we had here. I had the same conversation in Stanford in about 2004, doing sidewalks, new sidewalks in some areas that didn't have it. So let's get back to filling in the gaps, because that's where it's important.
Can I ask a question that
Sure,
will lead
go
into
ahead.
that?
Sure.
So you said you hired the highway person, but I was wondering, do you work, I don't even know if Darien has one, but like an urban planner, so that would help you? I mean, I think it's awesome that you did this whole sidewalk evaluation ranked, but which to me is the first part of the strategy. The second part of the strategy would be the fill in the gaps one. Would you work with someone, I don't know if we have anyone on staff here, but that would be an urban planner that would help you make potential decisions of what the ranking is in terms of importance versus not importance?
I think what I used was the PIAC report to give me direction on importance.
Got
And
it.
those folks spent a lot of time in going out there, and they walked a lot of
Okay.
streets, and they were nice enough to dictate it. And if you haven't seen the report, well,
Look at the report.
we should,
It's
we should
it's
scan that and
spectacular.
get that out to
Where
you
is it?
folks, because it,
It should be available online, I think.
I would hope.
But-
I have a
But you
copy
can
of
find
it.
So that is your urban planner,
Yeah, but
essentially.
from a sidewalk point of view, yeah, I mean,
Okay.
that was an incredibly diligent group. They spent probably 6 to 8 months
Okay.
walking every foot and photographing most feet of sidewalks in town.
You send that to you.
However, though, none of the redevelopments probably have been taken into account.
Yeah, in the last 4 years,
Yeah.
those would be,
There we go.
those would be subsequent to their case.
Ed, when you say 25 miles of sidewalk, right, 25 miles?
Hmm?
Is that, if there's sidewalk on both sides of the street, is it getting counted once or twice?
Twice.
Okay.
If it's surface sidewalk, I counted, well, if it's on one side, or I double it if it's on both sides.
Right, okay.
And the reason for that is that costs money
Yes,
to
yeah,
replace.
yeah.
so
Yeah,
I
it's
need to
still
do that.
sidewalk.
But now I want to try to understand how much out of the 80 miles is actually covered by sidewalk. So out of that 25, is it most of it's single? So you're probably at 20.
Most of it's single-sided. You know, I
Boston
mean,
Post Road, I think, maybe portions of West Avenue, not much.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
even the Post Road, I mean, it's double-sided through the downtown.
Through the
of
downtown
course.
area, yeah.
But, you know, when you get out
Yeah.
past like Maplewood,
Yeah.
you know, it's one-sided at best.
So maybe
Yeah.
a quarter, maybe a little
Okay.
less than a quarter.
Because if you look at the 80 miles, you're going to say, and we were just discussing this, that some of it is just not going to get because you just don't need. So does that 80 come down to 40 to 30, and this gap really is only 5 or so? And out of that gap, there's probably much more important parts to it, you know, the heavily trafficked areas than the non-heavily trafficked areas.
Well, again, if you haven't seen the report,
Yes,
like,
I-
you got
yes.
to
That's
see
the
the report,
Yes, I
because, I mean,
did.
they set priorities around the downtown, public infrastructure like libraries and things like that, schools as key priorities.
Commuter
where
parking lots and stuff.
commuter lots, you know, so that report identified here are the high priority demand generators, and then and then they made this detailed map of where the existing sidewalks were, and you know, to Ed's point, the gap under Tokenique underneath the highway was one of the high priority gaps. Hoyt Street to get up there was another high priority. You know.
What I'm trying to get an idea of for myself, at least, is this gap, the needed gap. You know, is it 5 miles at a cost of, you know, how much for that? And then you could work that around the $3 million number for the replacement, and then you have a general idea of really how much you need to have. And again, coming into the play of you can only do so much at one time.
I think to generalize that gap with a figure of it's 5 miles, how much would that be? When you start identifying where those gaps are, it's very particular, very directed at certain things or activities, if you will. So that 5 miles, it may not be 5 miles. That gap that you're looking for, it may be an accumulation of these little things, 1,000 something feet on Tokenique, 1,000 feet on Hoyt Street, 400 feet on Locust Hill, another 600 feet on Mansfield Avenue. That's just to connect 2 blocks together so you can get to the sidewalk so the kids can cross the street to the school. So these little gaps that we're filling in, it's not like they're missing. Some of them are requested for safety reasons. Some of them, well, Locust Hill just made sense. I don't know why that stopped the way it did, but that kind of gives you the connectivity to the downtown area from 5 Mile.
Where you have the redevelopment, say on the Post Road by Duchess, is that the town that is putting in the sidewalk, or, because the buildings are pre-existing buildings, and they've just been painted and updated, but they're putting in sidewalks, so are they electing to do that, or are they required by the town?
If I told you that the state DOT required them to do it at their cost, would that surprise you? Part of their permitting process to get access permits to move driveway locations, they usually tie into it, hey, while you're doing that, you need to replace that whole side. And if it's in poor condition, I can understand them asking to do that.
Well, they're doing a nice job.
There, it's turning out very nice.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he wasn't anticipating having to do that much, but it's turning out well.
So in interest of time for Ed, who's graciously spending his evening with us, we are going to I will forward the report to you, okay? And maybe we could quickly summarize any additional short questions and then let Ed get on his way.
I do want to just add one more thing, because I think it's important. I've, in my past life, in another place, I did some work on new sidewalks that weren't in the locations they're going to be. Let's say you didn't have a sidewalk, you're going to have one now in front of your house, and oh, by the way, you have to shovel the snow.
Yep.
Good.
And I find that to be probably
A deterrent.
the major deterrent to having one. So our next adventure is going to be moving forward with a public information meeting for Edgerton, from West Avenue to West Elm. And we've designed both sides so they can take a look at which one has the most, needs the most work or has the most obstructions and so on. And then we're going to get some feedback from the public. But I will tell you, it hasn't changed in 15 years. The major obstruction sometimes and the major objection from the residents is I have no plans on plowing or moving that snow off of there. And unfortunately, the ordinance says they do. So that usually is the biggest pushback. And we found up on Hoyt Street was one of the other reasons too. They did not want to maintain that sidewalk out in front of their house. Some of the older people that lived up there, and understandably so. But that's what we're going to find again, and I haven't found a way to get over that yet. You know.
Right, so there are a couple of ways, again, I want to be respectful of your time. First of all, I think there are ways to address that and ways to kind of take one bite at a time at the apple. We're not going to be able to solve the entire thing, soup to nuts, right? So that everyone's happy before we turn over the first spadeful of dirt, right? Just as a principle, right? If I can just have one initial comment, again, being respectful of your time. I can't imagine a public servant who's been more responsive and more helpful and more thoughtful in discharging the duties of your office than you have been. So I want to say thank you. From generation after generation of public works folks. As long as you've been here, I think it's been a real pleasure to work with you. So thank you for everything you've done.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. It makes it, I don't have a problem coming and talk to you folks about any of this. I told you, I love what I do. Some of the challenges are a little bigger than others. And,
That's it's a lucky thing to have, to be like what you do.
you folks let me work on a hobby. This is good stuff. I really do enjoy it. So.
Yeah, one point about shoveling the snow off the sidewalks. I mean, there is an ordinance. I assume then it's the town's responsibility to enforce the ordinance if they so choose to do so. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes. I do understand that the police do at times, you know, if they need to, kind of knock on your door and remind you of that. Since I've been here, I haven't heard a lot of it, but I will also say that a lot of the Darien residents are very mindful of their responsibilities. So I don't get a lot of reports of that. I do get a lot of reports of the snow coming from the street onto the sidewalk after they shovel it, and I do try to warn them that they really should kind of give us a chance to get the majority of the snow off as best we can. I know by the time we get there, that slush is on there and it's starting to freeze, and I get it. I really do. Right. The other one is landscapers that plowing someone else's driveway and to put it right up on top of the sidewalk across the street, and that seems to be some of the issues we deal with. But we do know most of them, and I have no problem reaching out to them and letting them know that they need to either go out and move it, or we've moved it for you, don't do it again. So we do try to keep up on that too.
Great.
Start charging them. Charge people to the sidewalk.
Your summer interns would go around.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe winter interns.
Yes.
I think there are a lot of numbers you gave. Are most of them on that piece of paper? And if so, can I get either a picture of it or a copy of it or something?
But you know,
I have no idea what you're talking about.
I thought so.
I'm gonna dial back
that's
my
not
phrase.
needed for the minutes.
I need to know
This is just
basically,
you just general, one
All right.
sentence per item.
He's in the
That's it.
budget process.
Yeah.
So you gotta respect that.
I will be more forthcoming at your next meeting. You can invite me.
Yes,
He's in the budget process.
yes. When we get a little closer to the budget. Okay.
Thanks.
You're welcome to stay.
I think I've worn out my welcome though.
Thank
I'm
you,
going to
Ed.
go.
Thank
Thank
you,
you
Ed.
very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Actually, I had emailed you last year, 2 years ago when it was, you helped get a sidewalk put on, not a sidewalk, a curb put onto my street because water was running down my driveway. So, thank you.
Take care. Have a good night now.
Thank you. You
Thanks,
too.
bye Ed. Okay, so next item on the agenda, if you read the minutes, but you were not at the meeting, you can still vote to approve the minutes. Okay, that
So I
is,
don't have to abstain?
you don't have to abstain.
I read it.
Okay, so if you read the minutes. So, can I have a motion to approve the minutes from the October 15th, 2019? Thank you. Second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay. Under other business, I just want to let you know that the meetings in the future are all on Tuesdays. And today was, I just couldn't get a room for today, or for yesterday. The next RTM meeting is next Monday, right?
Mm-hmm.
All meetings are in this room except for the February meeting, which is in the auditorium. All meetings start at 7:30, okay? What I have done with the schedule, if you look, is the rules meetings are usually, or in 99% of the time, on the Monday before our meeting.
Mhm.
And what will happen is that rules, if we are assigned something, then I will be able to talk about it at the following day at our meeting. So that's why it's scheduled like that. Under other business, some of you worked on this committee last year and you realized that we did not get a chance to work on this kind of thing as much as we might have wanted to. We spent the vast majority of our time working on the bag ban, plastic bag ban.
Mhm.
And I will give you a heads up that the BYO group did meet with some people, including myself and Jamie Stevenson and an assortment of people, to talk about a styrene ban. And this is a ban that would mostly focus on restaurants and food service places, and it mostly concerns, concerns the styrofoam containers that are used. It also could possibly include the peanuts, the peanuts that you used to
The
get.
packing material?
The packing material.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Bubble wrap.
yes.
No, well, they
No,
actually
no,
look
it's
like.
Oh, the peanuts, yeah.
Yeah.
This is a
Okay.
styrofoam.
Yeah, it's
Which are-
styrofoam.
Which are actually really hard to get anymore, so I'm not even sure if that'll be relevant. So, anyhow, I'm just giving you a heads up. This,
What's the BYO?
the BY, it's a bring your own
It
organization.
started with bring your own bag.
Oh,
Okay, now they're expanding their scope of interest.
So Westport and Norwalk have bans on styrene, and Norwalk has a ban on plastic straws and stirrers. I'm not convinced that this will end up in front of us. This was an item that was brought before the state last year, state legislation, and it got out of committee very comfortably, and it got out of the House, I think it was 123 to 23 vote. It never made it off of the Senate floor. But last year was a very busy year, and it doesn't mean that it doesn't have support. So I'm just simply giving you a heads up on this so that if it does turn into something, I gave you notice.
So just so you know,
And
just
you-
a question is like, is it the styrofoam thing, the ban, like at state level? Or was it the straw, or all three?
I think that I think that the general consensus is let's not just keep adding things to this. And so I think that the styrene and plastic straw thing would probably go together. But on the state level, this banning thing was separated, straws, styrene, plastic bags.
Got it.
And they did that because they didn't feel that they would get the support if they tried to commingle them and run it through. So that's why they did get the tax on the plastic bags. But the person that I'm talking to that I feel does actually know something said that this will probably come before the legislation this year.
In state,
So if it does, it doesn't seem prudent to use our time when it would be duplicated on a state level.
yeah.
I'm with that.
But I did,
Yes, I agree.
okay, so I am running this by you because one idea was for myself and Jamie to sit down with the BYO group and the Darien paper and discuss this. And I said that I am just one person on this committee, and so I can't speak for everybody as to what their opinion is on this, if we even would support some sort of a ban. So, would it be too early to just get a feel on if you think this is something that our town should be focused on at this time?
My question is that why is it you and not the sustainability committee?
That's a really good question.
Yeah, so I mean, I think it's misplaced. You know, regardless of what I think, you know, there's a sustainability committee. They should be going to that meeting, not necessarily you. I think we were assigned that bill.
We were.
And I think the reason why it's legacy. They're just like, oh,
Right.
you did this before, you can come along now.
Right.
But I really think that it's probably rightful place is probably. the
Okay,
Right, but-
I will say that it won't, if this does come down the pike, it won't be like last year. This will most likely come in the form of an amendment to the ordinance, and it will be a lot less contentious, because, we had the question of the 10-cent fee last year, which was a very divisive issue. This is also, I am personally hoping that this could be done without any kind of an ordinance. I feel that if you are a restaurant, and this does not pertain to grocery stores, okay? If you have an establishment and you get something that is brought into your establishment in styrofoam from outside, that doesn't count. It's only if you are actually putting something in styrofoam, like takeout, or you didn't eat all your dinner, leftovers, whatever it's called.
Yeah, can you pack this to go?
Right, to go. But for instance, if you are in a grocery store, the butcher and the seafood, they would still be able to use this product. This doesn't pertain to them. In the ordinances that I've seen, that's how it's been written.
And that's fine. I don't even think like that is necessarily germane to the conversation. What I was saying is that for your conversation with Jamie, the paper, and the BIYOB, perhaps it's not you, it's sustainability group that could speak on behalf of the town or the, you know, or whatever sustainability is supposed to be representing,
Yeah,
you know.
and this is.
Well, they'll also be most plugged into what alternatives are, because
Right.
I think there was a lot of discussion with the bag ban about what are the alternatives
Right.
and what are the consequences for picking one alternative versus another versus not picking anything and therefore just being defaulting to having nothing. Right?
Yeah, and this is usually, on the state level, this would have been enforced by the public health department. And for instance, one of the products that has been used is pressed sugar. But that is a product that actually attracts rodents, so.
Yeah.
So we have a different problem there. So, but I just want to get a general feel. Would people in general feel that this would be something that the sustainability group should be focused on? Or is this something that,
But the sustainability group is not part of the RTM.
right,
Correct.
So if this is being delegated as the responsibility of the RTM, I don't see how they would be involved.
Okay, so what is?
They
what is
could be
it?
involved
Public
maybe
health
in an
and safety.
advisory
Public
health.
capacity, but.
Yeah, public health, I don't.
Well, I think, hang on, I think we're mixing a couple issues, right? If the one issue is like, what do we do to address non-recyclable, potentially, non-recyclable waste in the town, I would 100% agree, Lindsay, that the sustainability group is gonna have the expertise and the knowledge, and they'll be a much better partner for Jamie than we will.
Right, yeah.
Right. On the other hand, if it does come down to an ordinance, it's probably gonna come down to us to evaluate that ordinance and to implement
Yeah.
that in some responsible way.
Yeah, so the question I guess is for you is, what question are we answering? Are we answering who goes to the meeting? Or are we answering the second part?
Yeah, so I think if we wanna solve this problem, I guess it seems to me the right way to do this, to have Jamie and sustainability work together, and that we would delegate someone on our team to monitor those meetings or attend those meetings to understand what the issues are and report back to us, just in the way in the past we've had, I've been assigned to sewer commission, and other people have been assigned to recycling, and other people are assigned to other stuff, right? We should have
Yeah.
people who are plugged into those processes.
So if and when it does come down,
Yeah, Lindsay, you're the expert on sustainability now, and you've been attending these meetings, right? So now
Yeah.
you can tell us what are the key issues and what are the sticking points, all right?
Mm-hmm.
The way it's my responsibility if something blows up in the sewer system
Right,
to
right,
inform
right.
this group as to kind
Yeah.
of what's gone down there.
Plus, we don't really know how extensive it is. If it's now been defined as restaurants, I know if I go to an Italian restaurant and get takeout, they usually give it to me in a tin with a piece of cardboard on top. So
Yeah.
I have no idea,
That's
is
what-
this really?
that's
I
what
mean,
Jamie is trying to
Yeah,
find
this
out.
might be 2 restaurants in town that
Right.
use styrofoam.
Right, that's what Jamie's trying to find out, is how big of an audience are we looking at, so.
How likely is state level action?
I'd say it's really likely. I'd say it's,
In
In which case isn't
Yeah, so there's a
local
whole-
action
Yeah.
yeah.
superfluous?
I'd say the only, probably the biggest problem is that I understand this is a shorter session. I think that it goes every other year, but don't quote me on that. And so that would be the only thing I would think that. But I asked the head of Surfrider, who's, this is an environmental group, and I contacted the chair of the Connecticut division, because they're pretty involved with this. And that's where I got the information that it was, it would probably come up this year. But that's total.
I'm
Conjecture.
not exactly clear on what the idea behind is. Is the idea in saying you're not allowed to use that, full stop, and that's an ordinance? Or we will have some environmental tax if you use
No,
that? Or
no. It'll
I
just be
think the
banned.
intent is to just eliminate it.
It'll just be banned.
Right.
So you won't be,
So the town wouldn't allow any of these containers to be used, full stop?
Right, so Duchess operating in town
Yeah.
presumably would have some transition period.
Yeah.
After
Yeah.
which
They
they-
would have, like whatever, some fast food restaurants, they move into paper, right?
Yeah.
But it's not that they can turn it on.
A big-
Yeah, and I just feel like I feel bad because I feel like you're involved in the process a lot earlier than perhaps necessary. You know,
well,
like,
I like being involved this early, because I like being involved this
Yes.
early.
well, I mean, but really the discussion partner for Jamie should be sustainability. Or some, those that are as close to the brink. Now you have to make the calls to Surfrider. Now you have to, figure out the legislative.
You know what, I mean, the good thing is I'm pretty well versed in this.
Yeah, now you're in it. Now you
Yeah,
can run the
yeah.
sustainability committee.
No, but I think that Dick actually hit it on the head, and that from what the BYO group is telling us, this isn't a very large audience, and so if we have to, I will just go talk to all these restaurants, because they only mentioned 3, and suggest to them that, this might be something to consider. So,
Do you know what the additional cost to them? I'm assuming there would be, whatever they change to would cost more, otherwise why wouldn't they be using that?
Right.
No, it's a question of quality. Styrofoam keeps food warmer
Warm,
Very
longer
good.
than
That way.
cardboard.
Okay,
So if you're a restaurant doing a lot of takeout, your product gets to the house warmer than if it came in cardboard. So that's,
yeah. And there's a reason they use it for meat and seafood.
It's insulates as well.
Right.
So, it keeps stuff cool.
yeah.
Same thing, so if you have a fresh fish, right, and you put the fresh fish, and I used to work in the packaging industry, by the way, so I might know a thing or two.
Yeah.
But if you put fresh fish in, styrofoam and some ice in it, you can ship it, put it on a plane,
Mhm.
and it takes weeks until, it goes bad. If you put it in something else.
Right, but that's
it-
in essence though, that's a product packaging that you're describing.
Yeah.
Okay, now is product packaging what we're talking about here? No.
No,
No, no.
that's not what I heard.
It's a very small audience. We're
Yeah.
talking about basically caterers or restaurants. So,
And
okay.
They have the aluminum with the plastic lid, right, that's the other
That's the
option.
Italian restaurants.
Yeah,
okay, I feel like I have a good feel on the,
and that's for the salad, right?
Well,
For the hot food, it's different.
while we
No,
have
no,
new
they
business,
can't.
I just want to raise an issue,
I mean,
not
Once
for
they go
resolution,
one way,
just to
they
kind of
do
put it on the
everything
table
else.
for the
wait,
group.
excuse me?
Just while we're talking about new business, I just want to raise an issue that I think on everyone's mind, but we haven't tackled it in this group specifically, and it's climate change, issues relating to climate change, sea level rise. We're a coastal community. As we talk with Ed about planning horizons that are 10, 20, 50 years longer, right, I think we need to be cognizant of risks here that are I think are undeniable. And there are things that we can do as a town that are symbolic only, but kind of point us in the right direction. And there are things that we can do that are very tangible as far as we plan for new infrastructure. How do we make that as climate resistant as we can? The first obvious point that comes to mind is all the discussion about daytime flooding at Pear Tree Point Beach, and does that impact how people evaluate that project? Don't know enough about it to comment, so I don't really know, right? But the other example that I do recall is that when we had not Superstorm Sandy, but the storm prior to that was in 2011.
Irene.
Was that Irene?
Yeah.
So Irene, my recollection was that coincided with a high tide cycle and a full moon cycle,
Yes.
and that we were within, a vertical foot of having a very significant flooding problem in one of our major sewage pump stations down near Weed Beach, and had the storm surge come up just a little bit higher, we could have lost some very important infrastructure for a very long time. And so,
So your climate change is as related to infrastructure that's within our
correct, so
Like sewage and-
this group plans on long time horizons, and we need to be able to defend that infrastructure.
Well, we work for reinsurers that, all they do is talk about climate change, and so
Okay.
we have plenty of, information.
So I just want to put that on the table, saying that I think we should be thinking about. I don't have a particular agenda right now, right, but I think number one, as we have these conversations with Ed, we should be bringing that up more, because we didn't talk about it with him at all tonight. And number two, I think we should think amongst ourselves as to how we want to mobilize this issue in front of the RTM, because I think we're the right group to do it.
It's great, I said the other day, the house is still on fire, nobody did anything, right?
Yeah, Greta.
I'm just saying.
That's right.
I'm just saying, we are the leaders, right, in the town. We've been elected to have these roles of responsibility. I think we have a leadership obligation and opportunity.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have anything for new business? Okay, thank you for coming. Can
Move
I-
to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you.
Awesome.